It was 8:02 a.m. on Father's Day when my phone buzzed. One text. 5 words. Don't expect anyone to show. Sent by my daughter. No emojis. No punctuation. Just finality. I stared at the screen for a moment, not out of shock, but recognition. I had been preparing for this message my whole life. I just didn't know it. I didn't reply. I didn't call. Instead, I poured myself a black coffee. Sat by the window. Watched the wind push my wind chimes. And I stayed quiet. That evening, curiosity won. I opened Facebook. A live video popped up, tagged publicly. My children. Their children. My ex-wife. My brother. Even the neighbor's brat. All laughing. All there. On a private beach in Maui. The caption? Finally together. No one even thought to blur it for me. That's when I typed just one line. Perfect timing. My name is Russell Grant. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I want to ask you something. Have you ever spent your whole life building something, only to find out you were never invited into it? I wasn't always invisible. I funded those beach trips. I co-signed their homes. I built the company that carried their weddings, their tuition, their upgrades, their comfort. But somehow, I'd become nothing more than a shadow in their celebration. That night, while the waves clapped in their background, I made one quiet decision. I walked into my study, opened the safe, pulled out the binder labeled business charter. At 2:11 a.m., I removed my name. I called the accountant, froze every corporate card, every expense account, every family login, not out of anger, out of clarity. They wanted to celebrate without me? So be it. But what happened a week later? When my son stood at my door, breathless and red-faced, pounding? That's when the real Father's Day began. Dad opened the door. He sounded like he used to, when he was 6 and locked himself out of the house barefoot in winter. Only this time, he wasn't holding a snowball. He was holding panic. I took my time. 1, 2, 3 steps. Coffee in my hand. Calm in my chest. I opened the door. There he was, my son Darren. $600 sneakers. Wrinkled shirt. Eyes wide. Mouth already moving. Why didn't you tell us? Mom's card got declined at the resort. Madison's flight got canceled. No one could book a thing. I took a sip. And the company account's frozen. HR called me this morning. They said you took your name off the charter. I nodded slowly. That's right. His lips twitched like they wanted to curse, but didn't know how to speak in a house where they were no longer welcome. You can't just. What about payroll? What about family planning? We're supposed to meet with investors next month. I said. Funny word. You didn't use it last week. He fell silent. Just heavy breathing, blinking faster than his thoughts could catch up. I gestured toward the guest chair. He didn't sit. He paced. Look, I know how it looked, okay? But it wasn't personal. It was easier for the kids if we kept things calm. I almost laughed. Kept things calm. Is that what they called abandonment now? Darren, I said softly, when you were 17, you crashed my Chevy. You called me, trembling. I came at 3 a.m. in the rain. No questions. He looked down. When your daughter got pneumonia, I paid the entire hospital bill while you were in Cabo. Silence. And when your mother served me the papers, I never dragged you into it. Not once. I protected you. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You had every opportunity to show up. All I asked for was presence. Not money. Not gifts. Just presence. I walked past him and opened the front door again. You wanted to celebrate without me, Darren, I said, still calm. So now you can rebuild without me. And then I did something he never expected. I shut the door. Gently. The sound of Darren's fists faded after a while. I heard his footsteps retreat, fast, frustrated, unfamiliar with being turned away. He didn't even say goodbye. Not that I expected him to. I stood alone in the hallway, coffee still warm in my hand. The air smelled like cedar and silence, and something else I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. I didn't need noise to validate my worth anymore. I had documents. I had power. But most importantly, I had peace. I went to the study and opened my old filing cabinet. Inside were folders they had all forgotten. My original partnership agreements. Old tax filings. Letters they never read. At the bottom was a manila envelope labeled Plan C. I smiled. I had written it 10 years ago, back when I first started feeling invisible at family dinners. It contained a notarized amendment. If I ever stepped down from the company, control would not default to my children. Instead, it would pass to someone I had chosen years before, someone no one ever thought to consider. Linda, my former assistant, 40 years younger than me, but with more integrity than the whole bloodline combined. She had stayed late, arrived early, remembered birthdays, even mine. She wasn't blood, but she had been present. I sent her a message. Activate Plan C. You're in. 2 minutes later, she replied with a simple, "Understood, Mr. Grant," followed by a blue heart. While the rest of them were splashing around in resort waters and sipping drinks on my dime, I was rewriting the tides. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. I had raised a generation that believed access meant entitlement. And now, they'd learned that absence carries its own price tag. By evening, the company's board had been alerted. New leadership installed. All family emails deactivated. I watched from my recliner, jazz playing low in the background, as my own son sent a desperate public LinkedIn post, looking for new opportunities, open to consulting. And that made my coffee taste even better. I didn't check my phone much that week. Not because I wasn't curious, but because I already knew the playbook. Phase 1, panic. That was Darren at my door, looking like the stock market just dropped and he had bets on the wrong side. Phase 2, damage control. That came in the form of a voicemail from my daughter 2 days later. "Dad, I didn't mean it the way it sounded." The text. "It was just things were complicated. We thought you'd be uncomfortable there. Too much travel. Heat. The beach." She trailed off. Her voice cracked near the end. But there was no "I'm sorry." Just excuses wrapped in guilt soft tones. I played the message twice. Then deleted it. That same night, I received an email from my ex-wife. Subject: "You've made your point." Body: "This doesn't have to get ugly. Think of the kids. The business. We were just trying to keep peace." Peace. That word again. It had become their excuse to exclude me. Their shield against accountability. I poured myself a drink. Not coffee this time. Whiskey. Neat. Turned on the fireplace. And remembered the exact moment I became a stranger in my own legacy. It wasn't the Father's Day text. It was 3 years ago, my 70th birthday. I had hosted a dinner. Reserved a long table at my favorite steakhouse. Paid for every plate, every wine glass, every laugh. They showed up late. Left early. Gave me a mug that said, "World's okayest dad." Then posted a group selfie, without me captioned. "Family nights are the best." I wasn't even tagged. So no, this wasn't revenge. It was recognition of who they had become, and who I would no longer be for them. As the fireplace crackled and the ice in my glass melted slow, I looked out at the evening sky. They wanted a life where I was just a signature. So I erased my name, and I finally felt whole. By the 5th day, the calls stopped coming. No more voicemails. No more explanations. Just silence, the kind I used to beg for when they were toddlers screaming over cartoons. Now, it filled the house like music. I spent the morning reorganizing old boxes, things I hadn't touched in decades. In the attic, I found a photo album, thick, worn, with pages curling like old memories trying to breathe. Page after page of holidays, baseball games, birthday cakes. I was always behind the camera, the man holding the lens, not the one held in arms. That's when I realized I had trained them to take, to receive, to expect love without returning it. And now they were grown versions of that same hunger, only louder, richer, and more entitled. Later that afternoon, I called Linda. "Let's make it official," I said. The board approved her full control of the company. Her first action? She reinstated employee child care benefits that had been slashed by Darren last quarter. Second action? She awarded bonuses to the night shift, the ones who never made the Christmas cards but kept the lights on. I watched from afar as the company finally breathed. Not as a family inheritance, but as a place of purpose again. A week passed. Then two. Then, out of nowhere, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew that handwriting. My grandson. It read, "Grandpa, I don't know everything that's going on, but I miss you. And I'm sorry I didn't come see you on Father's Day. I wanted to. I really did. Mom said it was better to let things settle. But I think that just made it worse. If it's okay, can I come over sometime? Just me." My hands shook a little as I held the paper. Not from anger. From hope. The kind I thought had died with the silence. He came on a Wednesday. No announcement. No entourage. Just a boy with a backpack, a shy smile, and my eyes. His name is Eli. My grandson. 15. Taller than I remembered. Quieter too. I opened the door and said nothing. He held up the letter I'd already memorized. "I meant what I wrote," he said. I stepped aside. He walked in like he didn't know if he was allowed to. Like guilt lived in his sneakers. We sat in the kitchen. I poured him some lemonade. I had coffee. Always coffee. He looked around the house with the gaze of someone stepping into a memory they didn't know they had. "You still have that wooden clock," he said. I smiled. "You used to pretend it was a time machine," I said. He grinned. "The first real one. I remember." We didn't talk about his parents. We didn't need to. Instead, we talked about school. About how he wanted to study architecture. How his friends all thought money grew from screens. He said something then that caught me off guard. "Grandpa, you were the only one who showed up to my science fair." I blinked. "You stood in the back. Didn't say a word. Just gave me a thumbs up when it was over. That meant more than I think anyone ever knew." And suddenly, the silence in my house didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I showed him the garage, now filled with old blueprints and with scraps I hadn't touched in years. "You want to build something?" I asked. He nodded. For the next 3 hours, we built a birdhouse. Not perfect, but it stood. He painted it red. Initialed the side, E.G. "Can we hang it in the yard?" he asked. We did, right next to the oak tree I planted when Darren was born. That night, as he slept in the guest room, I sat by the window. Maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe it was. Reclamation. The next morning, I made breakfast for the first time in years. 2 plates. Bacon. Eggs. Toast slightly burnt, like my late wife used to make when she said, "Crisp has character." Eli laughed when he tasted it. "I think Grandma would have approved," he said. That name. I hadn't heard it spoken in this house since the divorce. And for a brief moment, she was in the room. Not as bitterness, but as history. He left that afternoon with a new hammer, a blueprint, and a hug that didn't let go first. I watched him disappear down the path, red birdhouse gleaming in the sun. And I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I signed my first company check. Pride. But pride doesn't exist in a vacuum. Later that week, I got another letter. This one typed. Cold. Legal. From Darren's attorney. "Given your abrupt removal from the family corporation and its accounts, we are requesting an immediate hearing regarding inheritance, stake, and legal claim." They still didn't get it. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about punishment. This was about presence. And the cost of its absence. I sat down at my desk and wrote a response, not to the lawyer, but to the board. I enclosed every photo, every hospital receipt I had paid, every forgotten birthday card I had mailed with $100 bills that never got acknowledged. Then I did one final thing. I wrote a clause into the company charter, signed and notarized. Upon my death, no blood relative shall inherit leadership without 3 years of active service within the company, starting at entry level. Let them earn what they once expected. Let them walk the warehouse floor. Feel the cold in their bones at 5 a.m. Learn what it means to build something, not just inherit it. Linda approved it the same day. When the attorney called me, voice raised, threats cloaked in legalese, I smiled and poured another cup of coffee. I'm not punishing anyone, I said calmly. I'm just giving them the same opportunity one gave myself. A chance to show up. Autumn came slowly that year. The kind that paints the trees in soft fire before letting them fall, gently, without apology. My house was quiet, but not hollow. The birdhouse Eli built still hung in the yard. It had residents now, a pair of bluebirds nesting like they had found the only honest place left in the world. I watched them sometimes more than I watched the news. 3 weeks after the charter clause took effect, Darren emailed me directly. No threats this time. Just a sentence. I didn't know I had to lose everything to learn where it came from. I didn't reply. Not out of pride, but because silence sometimes holds more weight than words. That week, I got a knock on the door. Linda stood there, holding a manila folder. Inside, quarterly reports, board notes, and one crisp envelope with my name in gold lettering. She smiled. We hit our highest earnings in 6 years, she said. Without a single family member on payroll. I opened the envelope. Inside, a check. A thank you bonus from the team. Not a gift from obligation, but a gesture from respect. It wasn't the money that moved me. It was the handwriting on the card. To the man who taught us what real presence looks like. Later that evening, I sat on the porch. Coffee in hand. Sky turning gold. Eli texted a photo. Him holding up a model he built at school. A bridge. Red steel. Strong foundation. Caption, look familiar? I chuckled. Yes, Eli. It looks like the life I finally built, not for them, but for the parts of me that still believed in connection. Not revenge. Redirection. Not punishment. Protection. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I whispered something to the breeze. Father's Day did turn out unforgettable. Just not the way they expected. The birds sang. The coffee stayed warm. And, in a world that once shut me out, I found something better than a seat at their table. I built my own.